7 PRC versus 7 Backcountry. But the 7 PRC gets a 26-inch barrel and the 7 Backcountry gets a 10-inch shorter barrel. 2,833. 10-inch shorter barrel. 2872. There was like no kick. I don't know what else I can complain about. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. Oh man, hang on to your seats, buckle up and take your vitamins, because GunTube is gonna be absolutely polarized this week about a new cartridge that has just come out. This is it. We have it. We're gonna go shoot it in a sweet new gun. This is called the 7mm Backcountry. It's from Federal, and so major ammo manufacturer, about to release this thing, and it promises some very interesting developments that hunters, I think, are going to like, particularly if you like shooting with a suppressor. All the new cartridges over the last 20 years have just been updates to previous hits, right? You know, it's just like movie makers, right? It's like they're going to make number 2 of everything these days. Well, you take the 6.5x55 and you're like, you know what? Let's make it a short action, tighten up all the chamber tolerances and give it a 35-degree shoulder. Poof, 6.5 Creedmoor. Let's sell more of that thing. You know, let's take the 7 mag. There's a winner. Remove the belt, tighten up everything. 7 PRC, 300 Win Mag, 300 PRC, 270, 6.8 Western, right? And all of these new cartridges have brought some interesting incremental improvements. Well, this is the cartridge that this brand new cartridge is trying to iterate on. It's trying to improve upon. It's this cartridge. Well, a lot of you are saying, what the crap? Because this is the 7 PRC. And Federal's new cartridge takes direct aim at the 7 PRC. And when I first saw the marketing materials, I was like, okay, enough. You're telling me we're going to take the 7 PRC and we're going to try to update that right now? I was extraordinarily skeptical. And so they take that and they produce this now, the 7 Backcountry. Oh wait, that's not the 7 Backcountry. What cartridge is this? Oh, that is actually the 280 Ackley improved, and that is the 7 Backcountry. They look so similar, but it promises to give us the performance of a 7 PRC. So here's what the cartridge aims to do. Crazy performance in very short barrels. So if you're adding a suppressor on there, you're still going to have a shorter overall length than a 7 PRC, but get the same performance. I'm going to believe that when I see it. Next, you're going to get 1 extra shot in your magazine, because it's not a short fat cartridge like the 7 PRC. It's a little bit longer and skinnier. Very interesting. The ammo from Federal is going to be a tiny bit less expensive. Tiny bit. Maybe that's due to the steel case that they're using instead of brass. And that is how this cartridge is working and getting these crazy velocities. All cartridges, they kind of stop at 62,000 PSI, right? But there have been a couple new companies now that are interested in pushing the pressures way higher, like we've seen with the 277 Sig Fury. And that's the case with this 7 Backcountry. It's shooting a steel case, so it can handle a lot. It's a lot stronger. And the pressures are shooting at 80,000 PSI. And so, way better performance in a tiny barrel. Look at this. This is a 16-inch barrel, but it's a very serious long-range hunting rifle, or long-range shooting rifle that also goes hunting, right? But it also promises to have the same barrel life as the 7 PRC, and if you shoot this cartridge into the air right at midnight, it accurately predicts tomorrow's lotto numbers. Okay, maybe not so much about that last bit, but I think we go to the range and we start testing some claims, because I'm not so sure about those velocities. All right, first impressions were really good here. It was easy to get sighted in. Bullets all seem to be going where we would expect them. I am going to shoot a couple groups here to see how we do. The recoil was very manageable. This does have it's a 3-port muzzle brake, a pretty skinny one. That was very effective. There wasn't much muzzle jump on it at all. and the recoil was it just wasn't bad at all. But it was definitely less recoil than I would have guessed. So there are 2 loads that we're shooting here today. There will be other loads from Federal, and I'll show you here some of the data from their marketing materials on what they're expecting. Now this is a very, very short barrel, 16-inch. So if you do this in an 18 or 20, something like that, you'll get even faster results. But I'm pretty happy with this because I had a short little sword. So the 2 loads we have are a 175 grain Fusion and the 170 terminal Ascent. I'm really hoping that this one shoots well in the rifle because I would love to hunt with it. So I'm going to get velocities official for this, more than just one shot here, and get some accuracy results. And then we'll talk a little bit more about this rifle. Let's go to the 170 terminal Ascent first. Woo! 2,920 feet per second with a 16-inch barrel. I just can't get over that. This thing kicks the 7PRC's butt. Oh yeah, we're stacking them here. 29.21. So our velocity with the 175s, 28.82, and the average with the 170 terminal Ascent was 2,902. So I'm stoked about that. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. A 170, 175 grain projectile in a 7mm, just absolutely throwing those things down at, around 2,900 feet per second in a 16-inch barrel. All right, recoil. So in the marketing materials, they said that the 7mm Backcountry has a slightly less recoil than a 7PRC. I took immediate issue with that. As you know, around Backfire, we have done a lot of work on recoil, and I was like, well, it doesn't make any sense, because I mean, it's just equal and opposite reaction. I mean, if you're shooting a heavier bullet faster, it's 100% going to cause more recoil every time, right? So if all else is equal, if you're shooting the same grain weight of projectile at the same velocity, you would expect the recoil to be identical. But there are a couple confounding factors. Number one is this is not using that much powder to get the result. And so there's less ejecta, therefore less stuff going out. You can't just ignore the powder that's going out as well. I mean, that's whatever, a third of the weight of the total stuff going out. And so that makes a big difference. So if you can cut back on the powder being used, you can make a tiny, tiny little difference in the recoil. But there's one other thing that I couldn't really explain to you, other than the gun just has kind of a weird resonance or a feel to it when you shoot. There's no bolt thrust. Because the steel is so strong, it's kind of galling and at the front, and kind of making it so it's not slamming back into the bolt with the kind of force that we would typically see. Now that is one interesting thing about reloading for this cartridge when that becomes available, because you just don't see the pressure. I mean, it's shooting at 80,000 PSI, but what I've heard is as you push the pressure up too high, you really don't see the telltale signs on the brass that you normally would, because it's just not giving that bolt thrust. They've tested it up to 110,000 PSI, by the way, just to test it for safety. So very, very strong cases. So number one question is, what about the 28 Nosler? 7PRC has less powder capacity than a 28 Nosler. And the reason the 28 Nosler really didn't, well, it did take off, but it really has faded big time over the last couple of years, is most people just found it to be too much. I mean, we're burning out barrels in 750, 800 shots. The recoil was pretty extreme. And so, but what if we take a 28 Nosler and we put it in a 18, 20-inch barrel? couldn't we get this kind of velocity? Well, I haven't tried that. I couldn't tell you, but potentially it could be possible. But you'd face a big problem. You still have very high recoil and you're burning out that barrel crazy fast. The interesting thing about this is it has between 55 and 60 grains of powder in the 7 Backcountry, whereas a 28 nozzler would have, another 20 grains more than that, which, is going to burn out that barrel a lot faster. There is one question that maybe people won't necessarily be asking that I think is an important one. I did ask the question directly to Federal, and I didn't get a totally satisfactory answer on this. Just I'd like some more detail on it. And that's, is this a proprietary cartridge? Federal has said that no. I mean, this is, going to be a SAAMI cartridge. And so they want others on board. There's been talk that Remington could be loading this in the future, and many gun companies are going to be doing it. However, they did trademark the name 7 Backcountry, and many other cartridges being released are not trademarking it or relinquish the trademark so that it can, become public. And so I was a little curious about that. And then the other thing is they patented the alloy and the process that they're using to make this steel case. Now, presumably it could be done slightly differently by another company, but I would just like some more information on that, because that, you're going to be more locked in if you can only have Federal making ammo for it. Now, it looks like they'll have several loads for it, but it's just something that I'm still investigating. Next kind of common question you'd get about a new cartridge is this thing really going to take off? Nobody wants to dive into this cartridge that is a fad, and a few years later it's tough to find ammo for it and support for it and brass and all the other things. So the good news is that Federal has done a good job getting rifle makers on board with this. We've seen Horizon Firearms is making firearms for this. That's a huge one for me. Really like Horizon. Also Proof Research, Savage, and Savage is going to offer some inexpensive rifles as well. Fierce Firearms, really like them. Seekins, love Seekins. Then there's Christensen, Gunworks, Altera, Weatherby, Geisley, and Pure Precision, and I'm sure more to come. And so, they didn't pull a Browning Winchester on us where just a couple guns are made and then it kind of fades into oblivion. It seems like they've really done a good job of harnessing the industry around it, but only time will tell if it really is going to last. Let me tell you a little bit about this rifle, because it is a special one, and this is available from Horizon. So this is the Venatic Carbon. We are going to do a full video on this one. I'm trying to save ammo here because I have an elk hunt in just a few weeks, and I would love nothing more than to take this on it. It has a carbon fiber stock. This is from Iota, and I really love the modern grip here. There's just a little shelf here for your thumb that I love. A good vertical grip here, a wide forend, really nice for resting on a bag with a bunch of different attachments here. But the thing that, Horizon is really known for, they just do really cool fluting patterns on these barrels. So this is a carbon fiber wrapped barrel that they've fluted the carbon. Some people, get all up in arms about that. They're like, it's losing strength. Well, yeah, every time you flute something, it's losing strength, but it looks freaking cool and it performs like that. Plenty of strength out there. Really like it. It's got a TriggerTech trigger in it, that I set up as light as it'll go. And it's using their Wombat action. This is a new update from Horizon, not that long ago. Free Wombat picture on there, by the way. The action is super smooth. I can't remember what they said the coating that they put on this thing, but it is so slick how it runs. Anyway, I am very excited about this. We'll be showing this one in another video, but this is Horizon Firearms, the Venatic Carbon. All right, next skeptic's question is this thing reloadable? Because it, as a steel case, and as Americans, we're not real familiar with shooting steel ammo most of the time. We usually associate that with, the really cheap, 7.62 x 39 stuff that gets imported. But this is the opposite. This is really, really high quality steel so that it can take the pressures. Now, the issue for a reloader is can the die even force that back into the shape it needs to be? And the answer is yes. So Federal is working with a major reloading equipment manufacturer. I reached out to them and they said they are working on it, and it's going to be, quite a ways off. It's not available imminently, but they are working on getting load data available and dies so that this thing can be reloaded. Federal isn't imminently going to have component cases available, but they will with time have component cases for reloaders. But it looks like the interesting thing with reloading the cartridge is that the brass, the case, doesn't really deform much because it's so strong. And so it's more, neck and shoulder that you're doing, more just neck than anything else, because it keeps its shape pretty well. And so it could be kind of an interesting cartridge to reload. All right, so we've looked at both sides of this. We looked at the fanboy side, looking at just enjoying this new cartridge and all the hype. Then we looked at the skeptical side and some of the questions we need to kind of consider with a new cartridge to be even-handed. I'll tell you where I land in a second, but I will say that Federal, this is just their first steps. They're releasing the 7 Backcountry now, but they plan to release it in other cartridges in the future. And for a while, I've kind of wondered, where are we going with cartridge development? Because we've kind of taken all the big hits of the past and put tight chamber tolerances, 35-degree shoulders, and faster twist rates in them. And so, now what? And it does seem to be that the next generation of cartridges is all about high pressure. It's what SIG's doing with the 277 SIG Fury. It's what Federal is doing with the 7mm Backcountry and soon the Backcountry line. And I like it because, I want the best velocity I can get, but I really like shooting with a suppressor. And, an 8-inch suppressor on a 26-inch gun is just a little ridiculous for taking into the field. So I like what high pressure can do for us. Gives us shorter barrel lengths. So my opinion overall of 7 Backcountry, I understand the things that we're going to have to see how they shake out over time, but all I know is I have a freaking awesome gun that's shooting great groups, that's shooting 170 and 175 grain bullets at 2,900 feet per second in a tiny 16-inch barrel, just ready for a suppressor. And so I don't know what else I can complain about. The cartridge definitely has promise. That's the 7mm Backcountry. Thanks to Federal and thanks to Horizon for giving us access to this so we could bring it to you guys. What do you think?